Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Budget Workshop meeting of the Wall Township Board of Education for Tuesday, February 27th. Please join me for the flag salute. Thank you. At this time, I'm going to ask our board secretary to please read the sunshine announcement and perform roll call.
Yes, this is the Wall Township Board of Education meeting for which adequate notice under the Open Public Meeting Act was provided by notice to the CoStar, Asbury Park Press, all Wall Township Public Schools, Township Administration Office, and the Board Administration Office on February 1, 2024. And this is a special budget workshop meeting. Take a roll call. Mr. Anizio? Here. Ms. Barbier?
Here.
Mr. Buffa?
Here.
Ms. DiGiovanni?
Here.
Mr. Maliff?
Here.
Mr. Nasser?
Here.
Ms. Shimko?
Here.
Mr. Wondrak? Ms. Stites?
Here. Thank you so much. At this time, I'm going to be opening the floor for public comment. Anyone who has any comments for any school-related issues, please feel free to come to the podium. Seeing none, we're going to close the floor for public comment. At this time, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda. Ms. DiGiovanni? Oh. May I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Buffa. Can I have a second? Second. Mr. Adonisio, thank you. Mr. Smythe?
Take a roll call. Mr. Anizio? Yes. Ms. Barbier?
Yes.
Mr. Buffa?
Yes.
Ms. DiGiovanni?
Yes.
Mr. Maliff?
Yes.
Mr. Nasser?
Yes.
Ms. Shimko?
Yes.
Mr. Wondrak? Sorry. Ms. Stites?
Yes. Thank you. And at this time, we're going to be moving into the board workshop session to discuss the preliminary 2024-25 budget. I think it's very important that the public understands that this is a workshop meeting. We will be having several of these meetings that will be led by our school administrators, our professionals, to discuss different pieces of the budget and how the budget is developed. This is by no means set in stone. This is a working document that we continue to work with, but this is an opportunity for the board as a group of 9 to sit and hear and digest some of the information that's here. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Handerhan, and I thank everybody for all your hard work working on this.
Thank you very much, Ms. Stites. I'm certainly going to be a bit redundant to our prelude provided by our board president tonight, but I think there's some things that are worth repeating. So I would like to wish everyone a wonderful evening. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining us, those that are present. Budget workshops, as Ms. Stites said, are sessions for the full board to meet as a whole and discuss the 2024-25 budget, and are in addition to the discussions that take place in committee meetings where no more than 4 board members meet with school and district administration on a monthly basis. The budget workshop is held in public because it includes the full board and therefore provides an opportunity for the public to observe the board as they work on the budget. The budget workshops are working meetings of the Board of Education, and they are not presentations of the budget. As Ms. Stites said previously, this is a work in progress. And just to reiterate that it is not a board presentation this evening, it is a work session, and documents being referenced, reviewed, and discussed have not been made available to the public and are not made available at the workshop meetings. It is important to note that to date, state aid figures have not yet been released. We are expecting state aid figures at the end of this week. Please understand that the state figures can and certainly will impact this process and our budget possibly greatly. So please keep that in mind, that the state figures have not yet been released. We expect them I'm hoping either Thursday or Friday of this week. At the upcoming March 19th Board of Education business meeting, the board will be asked to approve a tentative 2025-26 2024-2025 school budget for the purpose of submitting the budget to the NJDOE for review and approval prior to advertising the proposed budget that will be presented at a public meeting and voted on by the Board of Education. Work on next year's budget will continue after the submission of the tentative budget, and the final budget will be presented at a public hearing. Our next budget workshop, so that would be a format similar to this evening, if not identical, just different topics, is scheduled for March 26th. The public hearing on the 2024-25 school budget is scheduled for April 23rd, 2024, and at that time, a budget presentation will be made to the public, and there will certainly be public comment specific to the budget on that evening. The board will then, on April 23rd, vote on the proposed budget. Before we get started this evening, I would like to share with you some priorities for this upcoming year's budget as we move through this process. Our goal is to create a budget that supports the following: curriculum updates and programmatic changes rooted in evidence-based practices and brain-based research. Additionally, strengthening capacity of staff members through professional development and increased leadership opportunities. Student wellness must continue to be at the forefront of our decision-making. K-12 evidence-based practices will be implemented. And once again, there will be a continued focus on maximizing efficiency with respect to staffing and with respect to purchasing. As I mentioned earlier, the 2024-2025 budget continues to be a work in progress. At this juncture, we have we've been working very hard, and at this very moment, we have a budget gap of approximately $1.7 million after factoring in all of our built-in and recurring expenses, priorities, and initiatives. The Finance and Facilities Committee and district administrators will work diligently over the next almost 2 months to close this budget gap. At this point, I welcome and certainly ask members of the Board of Education if there are any questions to the process that I laid out for you this evening, or if you have any questions, budget-related questions in general for Mr. Smythe and me. So are there any questions on certainly the process that I laid out?
Madam President?
Yes.
Dr. Anderson, just curious, the 1.7 million budget gap that stands right now, is that anticipating like a number of school aid, basing it off maybe last year?
The number, the 1.7 is, we have the administrators, and certainly through the work of the committees, we have been working towards identifying different priorities. That's also factoring in all of our really fixed costs, which include contracts, that type of thing. Also, we also had to take into consideration, just like when you go to ShopRite, the costs. I know my cart costs a lot more than it did. So, we have identified what we've prioritized, our fixed costs, and now we have to really hone in and prioritize priorities. So that's where we are right now. Mr. Smythe, did you want to add to that?
Sure, and just as a follow-up, the correspondence that went home on Friday, we were at like 2.9 between work over the weekend, meeting with technology, following up on information that was provided with regard to out-of-district tuition and adjustments made to those budget pages. We are now looking at 1.7. So that's the difference between Friday and today. And with regard to state aid, we should be receiving that by the end of the week, but the numbers that we're looking at right now is based on anticipation of flat state aid from last year.
It would be wonderful. Trenton, if you're listening, if we get a little boost, we won't complain. Okay. Thank you very much. I would like to welcome Ms. Bond. She's going to kick off this evening. This evening, we are focusing on special education, wellness, and curriculum and instruction. Those are the areas that will be focused in on tonight. We've done this for the last couple of years where we try to present highlights and priorities of the budget in a thematic sense. So this evening, we are, this is very much classroom and counseling office focused. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to our current Director of Special Services, soon-to-be Assistant Superintendent of Special Services, Ms. Kelly Bond.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. The packet, I think, are all in the folder, and I think mine should be the first one on top, so that's good. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about the proposed special services budget. And I do want to take just one moment to thank all the people within my department who are very hardworking and help to put all of these dollars to good use. And a special thank you to both supervisors, Dr. Nancy Samaha and Ms. Sam Bagarosa, who helped to put this budget together. So within the presentation this evening, you're going to hear about the responsibilities of a special services department, the administrative code, and the requirements within that do have budgetary impact, future goals of our department, and associated costs with the programs that we are currently running. The proposed budget supports the mission and the principles of the Special Services Department, and the heart of our work is truly in caring and supporting for students. But each action we take has federal and state guidelines that have budgetary impact. So the first slide demonstrates the many requirements and guiding forces. Overall, we create and maintain programs for students aged 3 through 21. The proposed budget provides funding for each of those programs, the staffing, the curriculum, and funds any extraordinary services that a child may require. The next slide outlines the continuum of services that we have here in Wall Township. And when we're making placement decisions for children, we always have to consider least restrictive environment. So at the bottom of the graph there, you can see the least restrictive environment is a general education classroom. Then we move along the continuum. We may add a special educator to a gen ed classroom. We call that in-class resource. Moving along that, you will see pull-out resource where a special educator may pull a group of students to teach them a specific subject area. Then you can see self-contained classroom moving along the continuum where a special educator may work with the same group of students all day, and those children are removed from their typical and general education peers for a longer period of time. If required, we look to place children in an out-of-district placement if we are not able to meet their needs here in Wall Township. And then the most restrictive environment that you can have is home instruction, and that is because a child is on their own with no exposure to any peers. That's typically done on a short-term basis due to maybe a medical need or something of that nature. So when we budget for staff in our special programs, we have to follow all of the guidelines within the code. There is a table in your packet which outlines the number of students that are allowed by law in each of the environments. So you can see there an in-class resource for an elementary grade can have 8 students in it, and for secondary you can have 10. There is no negotiation on those numbers. If we were to need a 9th student in a 4th grade in-class resource setting, we would either need to open another section of that class or potentially look at another elementary school that might have that same program and have room. When you look at the resource numbers, the pull-out resource numbers, you see a number, so 6 for elementary, 9 for secondary, and then you see numbers in parentheses. Those numbers are allowable if a paraprofessional is added to the resource room. If you were to go over that, again, you would need another section. And there's also a table there that shows the numbers for self-contained classes, and again, the ranges if a paraprofessional is added to the class. So I know I shared this last year as well, but I think it's always really important to highlight because these are the numbers in which guide our staffing budget. Moving on to the next slide, you'll see the current self-contained programs that we have here in Wall Township, starting at primary with our 3-year-olds and moving on through high school, and then the students who remain with us until the June of their 21st birthday. At this time last year, we discussed the opening of the emotional regulation impairment class at WIS for September 2023. The successful creation of that program has offered many WAL intermediate students access to the class. When we create a program like this, we like to include more than just a few students because that's really important for socialization and a sense of community. So when we're able to, we look to accept tuition-in students from neighboring districts who may not have that same program to offer their residents. So with the creation of the ERI program, it not only benefited Wall Township students, but we were also able to maintain 4 tuition-in students who required that program, and we were also able to return 1 student from an out-of-district placement to participate in the program, which resulted in approximately $200,000 being brought back to the district to support having this program. The ERI program at WIS will continue in the 24-25 school year. You will notice on that sheet there is one in bold at the high school, and that is the RISE program that we are projecting for September 2024. The vision of this program was presented at the December Board of Education meeting, and creating innovative and supportive programming in district is not only fiscally responsible, but is best for students and their families. There is a slide in your packet that reviews some of the important details that we discussed at the December Board of Education meeting and regarding the importance of RISE's creation. We have several students who are already identified as candidates for the RISE program, and we will continue to monitor students throughout the school year. At this time, we have 1 student who we intend to return from an out-of-district placement to participate, which offers close to $70,000 to support the opening of the RISE program. We anticipate more enrollment as we continue through the year and monitor student need. In addition to supporting our in-district programs, the bulk of the special services budget goes to out-of-district placement. I would like to note the care and caution that goes into making a decision to remove a child from their community school to go to an out-of-district placement. It's not a decision we take lightly. We value our children being educated in district. However, there are times when a child may need more or something different, and we are obligated to provide that. I am happy to share that we continue to have a downward trend in our out-of-district numbers. You can see back in 2010 and 11, our out-of-district numbers were higher. We were at 43 students who required an out-of-district placement at that time. Last year at this time, we were projecting 32 out-of-district students for September 2023. Due to students aging out and an emphasis on creating and maintaining in-district programming that meets the needs of all learners, we are projecting 27 out-of-district students for next year. This results in a decreased out-of-district tuition budget in the next school year. It is important to note that the number of out-of-district students can fluctuate at any time, given student need, given students moving in or out of the district. But this is the information that we have in this moment. The 27 reflects special education out-of-district placements and does not reflect students who attend Monmouth County vocational schools. The next slide demonstrates the tuition-in trends over the past few years. We have projected to have 11 tuition-in students in September 2024. We have had some students move out and go to post-secondary programs, which is wonderful for them, but caused a slight decrease in our tuition in numbers from last year to what's projected for next year. Again, this fluctuates based upon the needs of our surrounding districts and when they reach out to us to consider looking at one of our programs. The downward out-of-district total and the number of tuition-in students that we maintain is something our department continues to be very, very proud of and speaks to the quality of the programs that we have here in town. As we move into the 24-25 school year, we have several noteworthy goals within the department: the continuation of the ERI program at WIS, the inclusive related services initiative that we have been working on remain priorities in our department. The district objectives surrounding inclusive practices are an utmost importance as we create programs to maintain students in district and to expand our unified sports program. To close, your package shows various services that the budget supports within our department that meet the needs of the whole child and approximate totals for specific items within the proposed budget. So you can see there is a decreased out-of-district tuition cost from last year, but then there are some added costs to support the creation of the RISE program. I continue to be very grateful to the administration in Wall Township and this board for your continued support of our special services programs, our staff, and the work that we do. So I thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Ms. Bond, at some point in time, I think these slides are fantastic, and I thank you and your department for the work that you've done. I would like to see at some point the slide about the RISE program maybe be placed on the website, because I think there may have been some confusion about what that program is based on some public comment at a previous meeting. And I don't want to see this program be mistaken for something that it's not. It's a very much needed program. We want to keep Wall students here in our schools as much as possible, and these are real needs that need to be met. So I would just like to see if we could, obviously I saw the December presentation, but I would like to make sure that we keep accurate information available to the public so that we don't misconstrue what that program is. It's incredibly valuable, and I know you've been working really hard on it, so thank you. Thank you.
I have a question, and this might be for Brian more than you, Ms. Mon. The budget numbers that are within that projection, do they include transportation for special services? No. Okay, so that's just the educational expenses in the classroom?
Correct. If we are required to provide transportation, then that is included with, under the transportation budget.
Gotcha. Okay, I was just running some numbers here, and it's just amazing to see how the budget for our out-of-district placements has gone up substantially in the past few years. You know, right now we're at an average of almost $130,000 a student, not including transportation. So anything we can do to bring it back in, I think, is great from a financial standpoint. It gets even better if we're able to provide a better product and a better environment for the students to be in. So thank you for your work, and congratulations on the promotion. I wasn't here last meeting, so I didn't get a chance to say.
Thank you very much.
Madam President?
Yes, Mr. Agnesi.
So the one-on-one nursing, 250,000, how many students does that encompass?
So that is an increase from last year to this year. We had several students move into district with the need. So there is an increase, but it does vary, and we give ourselves a little bit of room, but it costs a lot of money. So I think we have about 5 students. Some of them are transportation nurses, and some are needed for the entire day, dependent upon the student and their needs.
So even if it's 5 students, and we contract that out, correct?
We do. Some of the students are in out-of-district placements.
So that number would be lower than if we had them as employees.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else for any questions for Ms. Bond? Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Handrahan?
Thank you, Ms. Stites. Thank you, Ms. Bond. I think nursing is probably the perfect segue as we segue to our to Ms. Steiner, our Director of Intervention Services and Student Wellness, and it's my pleasure to turn the microphone over to her so she can discuss some of the priorities for next year in her areas.
Thank you, Dr. Handerhan. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank the Board of Education for allowing me to present this evening. And I would not want to be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the hard work of the counselors, the nursing teacher leaders like our head nurse, Amanda Marshak, and our district select leader, Kaylin Gilvari. Their input and unwavering commitment to our students is so essential when we're planning a budget. I want to begin by describing a comprehensive student wellness program and what that offers. It offers a variety of services to address the needs of the whole child, the social, emotional, behavioral, developmental, health, and wellness needs. It addresses skills for relationship building, for self and social awareness, for positive decision-making, and it essentially provides our children the confidence to successfully navigate relationships, social media, peer pressure, and stress. And when outstanding needs surface, it provides a structure for the delivery of intervention services that we have planned within our budget. Our intervention services are seamless and flexible. Our district strategic plan includes a wellness goal that outlines how to cultivate community wellness through intentional programming and support. Actions aligned to intentional programming, like using data to identify needs, implementing programs and practices that are evidence-based, and structuring our supports in a manner that uses resources equitably, are just some of the best practices that we use to plan our student programs. This evening, the proposed wellness budget represents all of those important elements. It's responsive to what we need, and it's resourceful. We maximize the use of community-based services as we explore grant opportunities. We maximize the use of funding like Title I, Title II, and Title IV funding. And our proposed budget is also mindful of considerations and uncertainties that arise when we speak about student wellness. You know, essentially, children get sick. Children require home instruction. Families lose access to permanent housing. And unfortunately, children require care for mental health and substance abuse. We went into preparing a budget to make sure that we had a proposal that's responsive to even these situations that we can't control. Lastly, our proposed budget also adheres to the guidelines of the law. There's an example, the McKinney-Vento law has specific guidelines for providing educational stability for students who are without permanent housing. So tuition and transportation are just some of the costs that we as a district are responsible to assume when one of our students is temporarily housed inside or even outside of our community. So within our strategic plan, we have 3 goals that we discussed. Implementation of the 7 Mindsets program, which I think I've come to know as the 7 Mindsets woman. Post-vention planning, which is another area that I want to discuss a little bit more about tonight. And then also this comprehensive system of support that responds to needs of all children in a really thoughtful and effective manner. With our student wellness program, our 7 Mindset program, our objective is to continue to implement K-12 7 Mindsets. Our year 2 of implementation will take a deeper dive into the mindsets, including expanding the amount of lessons that we'll be delivering for each mindset K-8. We will be extending the program by engaging different members of the staff, like our PE teachers, media specialists, and other staff members, so that they're able to use the program within the confines of their current curriculum. At the high school level, we will be implementing 7 Mindsets 9 to 12 through more of a school-based model. The 9th graders will receive a curriculum that will be written this summer that will combine age-appropriate topics with the 7 Mindsets. So it'll be very resourceful to them at this time in their life. For example, like post-secondary planning or career interests and pursuits will be discussed under the mindsets of everything is possible, passion first, and the time is now. We also will continue to host the array of mindset-based activities that we use to build community, like some of the activities this year, like the Jenga Challenge. Extension resources for the 7 Mindsets can be funded through grants. The professional development aspect of implementation, we would like to continue through a teacher leader called our District Select Leader, who I know you're all familiar with, Ms. Gilvari, our current leader, who assists with teacher professional development, family evening programming, and provides opportunities for community partnerships. Her contributions are invaluable. The cost of her stipends, curriculum writing, and 7 Mindsets licensing is a little over $20,000, but more than half of this cost, as you can see, is funded through grants, which will result in the district carrying about $9,500 of that total cost. Our second important initiative for next year is the continuation of postvention planning and crisis response. This is the area of wellness that is so crucial to student safety. We would like to continue our license with the Lifelines Trilogy for prevention, intervention, and postvention programming. We have developed and trained response teams at district and school-based crisis management teams, along with implementing this year state-mandated school and district-based threat assessment teams. These teams need professional development. These teams have professional development beyond just the system and what the responsibilities of the team are, but also in proactive and evidence-based counseling, community-based counseling, restorative practices. These are some of the topics that we weave into professional development. We also require technology to maintain, to ensure procedural safeguards and produce the required documentation. So currently, we use a platform called Tipster, and that helps us track our harassment, intimidation, and bullying investigations, but it also has platforms for intervention and for threat assessment teams. So the cost of these platforms, as you can see, are documented on one of our slides. I also wanted to mention the nursing portion of this budget and how our nurses serve beyond the typical, school nurse, but they also serve on our school-based crisis management teams, our 504 committees. And they help us to deliver services that align to the requirements of the law. So one of our laws, Janet's Law, requires schools to have staff members that are CPR and AED trained, a certain number of personnel in each of the buildings. And this year, our head nurse, Mrs. Marshak, developed a training plan where we can take our own employees, and I have 3 nurses who have volunteered to be trained, Mrs. Marshak, Mrs. Penn, and Ms. Niskach, and they're going to be trained to be CPR certified trainers. So just this service alone and training them and equipping them with the skills will allow them to maintain the certifications of our present staff instead of outsourcing this service. So our last initiative is aligned to the systems that we use to deliver comprehensive programs and tiered supports, providing group instruction on habits of mind, group counseling to students with common needs or experiences like the loss of a parent, and providing individual counseling services are just some of the offerings within our wellness department. We also implement teams like our INRS teams to plan for students who demonstrate multiple needs in academic and behavioral challenges. Teams like the INRS offer strategies for instruction, track progress, and modify student plans as goals are attained. Trainings for these teams is ongoing and will continue to be a priority. Our comprehensive systems of support also consider health needs and resources like our medical supplies, so AEDs, EpiPens, those are things that we consider in our budget. We have a school physician, which is a yearly a requirement that we contract with. And these costs are, of course, a little bit more consistent from year to year because obviously we have a plan based on prior years, but we also do factor in costs that are a little less consistent, like home instruction, and things that arise throughout a year that we know that we need to address. Finally, I'd like to mention other medical services. Like I had mentioned prior, home instruction, and we also have nursing care for students that are before and after school nursing care. We have several students whose medical conditions require life-saving medications, and that requires a nurse to administer those medication. These children are active participants in our school community, so our goal is to provide them with the services required for them to continue to be engaged in outside school activities like clubs and sports. So in this area, we are proposing a budget, as you can see, that's close to $62,000 for both services. I hope this evening I adequately described the resources in our proposed budget. I thank you for the opportunity, and I obviously thank you for all of your ongoing support. And I can certainly respond to any questions you may have at this time.
Ms. Steiner, thank you so much. I appreciate this, this presentation. I think it's very important that the public recognizes the amount of dedication that the board and the administration has focused on student wellness. Definitely important that we budget appropriately for these programs. We've done so much work with Seven Mindsets. I had the opportunity with Mr. Maloff to attend our community leadership program the other night that was hosted with you and Ms. Galvari. Outstanding, had many members, leaders in the community coming together so that we take these initiatives and bring them out to our community. It'll make our whole community stronger. I appreciate everything that your department is doing for our students. This is going to really benefit our kids now and in the long run, make our communities as a whole much stronger. So I appreciate everything that you've managed to break down for us today so we get some sense of, you know, everything that is entailed in this part of this budget.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions for Ms. Steiner at this time? Okay, seeing none, Dr. Handerhan?
Thank you very much, Ms. Steiner. At this point, I would like to direct our attention to our Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction, Ms. Jennifer McCann, and she's going to share with you some upcoming priorities and also provide some insight into certainly some of the ESSER funding. So with that, I know she has a lot of detailed things to share. So, Ms. McCann?
Thank you, Dr. Handerhan, and thank you to the board for, as Ms. Steiner and Ms. Bond have also said, for your continued support with all of the initiatives from each of our departments. We wouldn't be able to do what we do without your support, so thank you. When it comes to building a curriculum and instruction budget, I work more closely with our building principals to see what their particular needs are going to be in terms of curriculum instruction, professional development, and resources, as well as the supervisors and directors within the curriculum and instruction department. So this was a team effort in putting this proposed budget together, so thank you for everybody in your due diligence and putting the students first. So one of our first topics that we come together with is the summer curriculum development. So each of our courses require us to have a curriculum document that aligns to the New Jersey standards. And there are two different reasons why a curriculum would need to be updated. The first reason would be that the State Department adopts new standards, and then they outline for us a timeline as to when we have to realign our curriculum to those standards. And the second reason would be that we are to follow a 5-year curriculum cycle. So every 5 years, whether the state adopts new standards or not, we are required to update our documents so that we are current with resources and instructional practices. So with that being said, in grades pre-K through 5, we will be rewriting our reading and writing curriculum this current summer, as well as our mathematics curriculum. The state of New Jersey adopted new standards in October for both of those content areas, and we are required to implement new curriculum aligned to those standards for September of 2024. When it comes to our ESL program, we are updating our entire K through 12 ESL curriculum. It is a little outdated, and we need to bring it up to speed with current resources and instructional practices. At the secondary level, again, all of our English language arts courses from grades 6 through 12 will be updated, as well as any of our AP curriculum that go along with that subject area. In mathematics, again, due to the state requirement, all math classes, math 6 through 8, pre-algebra, algebra 1, geometry, algebra 2, pre-calculus, statistics, and AP calculus will be rewritten this summer. And again, at the secondary level, ESL. And one of the other components, although the state does not require us in a standards for elective courses, this is where it falls under that 5-year curriculum cycle. We have elective courses that are due for the 5-year cycle. We will be updating business law. We're proposing a new class this year called Financial Investigations. So that'll be a brand new curriculum for the high school in terms of electives. We are updating our Harry Potter and fiction class to be renamed Fantasy Fiction to incorporate more types of the Harry Potter novels, sorry, just totally slipping my mind. And we're updating the American Nightmare class and also AP Physics. We will have a total of 49 courses being written this summer. Each course, we like to have 2 teachers at writing each course so that they can brainstorm and work off of each other. If it's a revised course, the teachers are received 12 hours per teacher. If it's a brand new course, it's 12 hours per teacher for a total, as to what you see on the slide, of $162,000. And of course, when we are writing curriculum, there's also the possibility of instructional resources needing to be updated, which is another caveat of curriculum and instruction. We have taken it a situation where we used to let the buildings purchase all of the instructional materials, but with the adoption of our new reading program past school year for K-2 and with the implementation in 3 to 5, the curriculum office will be doing all of that purchasing for our new magnetic literacy portfolio. We will continue our contract with Envision Math in K-5, and we are looking to bring in new resources to support that ESL curriculum for our multilingual learners. At the secondary level, we'll continue with Envision Math in the intermediate school for our Math 6 through 8 classes, and we are looking to update our resources for statistics, AP chemistry, AP psychology, and principles of business at the high school level. One of the other components, because of our digital age, is not only do we have our traditional textbooks and workbooks, but we also have a number of educational platforms that are used throughout the district. You'll see on the slide, there's a sample there for you as to some of the ones that are used throughout the district. Some are K-12, used district-wide. Some are used just in K-5 for instructional strategies. Some are just in the middle school, intermediate school, and some are at the secondary level, 6 through 12. 2 of the big hitters in the educational platforms is our iReady and our Linkit. Those are the 2 platforms that are used most regularly and for an assessment purpose and for a data purpose, for us to really know where our students stand with the standards and what types of interventions and strategies we can continue to provide for them for their success in both math and ELA. Some of the professional platforms that we use that comes out of the curriculum budget, Tiffany had mentioned Hipster and Hipstervention and ASAP in her presentation. Because of the professional service, we share that service. So we budget for them through the curriculum budget. And iObservation is the platform we use for our teacher evaluations. If you remember, we moved from OnCourse to iObservation. So those are 2 professional platforms. Moving along, we are proposing this year for the upcoming school year to have an opportunity for our elementary teachers to have a leadership role in the district. And we felt it was really important to provide this. We noticed out of feedback from the strategic plan that this was a desire of our elementary teachers. There's many opportunities at intermediate and at the high school for leadership, but not at the elementary level. So we are proposing a new position, a stipend position, where we would have grade level and/or department from the special ed department leaders for each of the grade levels. And the leaders would be supporting the implementation of initiatives that come out of either the curriculum and instruction office or out of the special education office. They would be liaisons between the departments and the teachers and the principals within the buildings. They'd be facilitating collegial discussions during grade level meetings or team meetings within their buildings, as well as provide professional development during professional development days or at faculty meetings when applicable. We would like the teams to be integrated. So at each grade level, we're proposing 2 grade level leaders where we would mix the grade levels teachers from each building. So there might be some teachers from Allenwood, Old Mill, West Mill, and West Belmar, and Central, all in one team with one leader. And we felt it was important to do that integration so that teachers can start hearing what's happening in other buildings instead of just continuously hearing what their colleagues are doing in their building. Getting that perspective and having that, again, that collegial conversation is important for everybody's professional growth. So that's a new position that we are looking to add for next year. And along those same lines of whether it's teacher professional development and teacher leadership opportunities within the curriculum and instruction budget, we do incorporate the professional development and staff registrations for all staff throughout the district. So this includes our teachers, our paras, our nurses, our counselors, our principals, the assistant principals, supervisors, directors, assistant superintendents, and also the superintendent. There are many, many workshops that we encourage our staff to attend outside of the district, whether they be through the county or through different universities. We also encourage our supervisors to attend their supervisor conferences as well as national conferences. The more that we're out there and learning best practices and we can bring it back, the better off this district would be. We would also like to continue our support in our reading and writing instructional practices. We made a big shift from using Teachers College Readers Writers Workshop and moving towards a more systematic, strategic way of teaching reading. And with that, our teachers are doing a phenomenal job in making that shift, and we want to ensure that we continue to support them in that transition. So we would like to continue with bringing in consultants to do that. Now, that's the big piece of pretty much all of the curriculum and instruction budget. And as many of you know, a lot of what we have been able to accomplish here in the district, whether that be in supporting the wellness initiatives or in some cases even some special ed initiatives and just our students in general and making the transition back to the district from COVID, we were able to do that because of federal funding. The federal government had provided all school districts with a number of grants, the first grant having been the CARES Act. And this district had received $249,369 in CARES Act money, which was from March 2020, and it was exhausted in September of 2022. Every dime that we were provided, we spent, and we spent that on our summer nights programs, on implementing an all-wall theater program, on high school credit recovery, providing data coordinators to our schools, as well as RTI teams to the schools, and also purchasing different digital software, hotspots, and subscriptions during the needed time of COVID and remote instruction. The second grant that the federal government had provided to us was the ESSER 2 grant. In this particular grant, we were provided from also March of 2020, but it was needed to be expended by September 30th of 2023. So this past September, we were required to spend $1,073,873. And again, we did just that, and we spent every dime. And again, they were spent on academic support programs, our Summer Night Academy that we were able to provide at no cost to our parents throughout the summer for K-5 intermediate and high school students, our Summer Focus program at the WIS program at WIS, as well as the Nights in Training program at WIS. Again, a lot of that money was put aside for data coordinators. We used it to purchase intervention instructional materials to ensure that we were being able to close that achievement gap after COVID. We provided our teachers, a group of teachers, with letters training, which is based on the science of reading. We provided our teachers with Sunday training for the special ed department. We helped support the 7 Mindsets program. We had contracts with MHA for training on crisis intervention, as well as providing counseling for some of our students, and also a contract with Integrated Care Concepts that provided a number of services to the district as well. The last federal grant that we have is ESSER 3 for a total of $2,562,603. As it stands today, of that $2,562,603, we have $85,246 left. And that money has been set aside to fund the elementary summer nights program this summer. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to ask. Mr. Smythe? Sure.
First of all, thank you for your report, and also for your extreme diligence in making sure that we spend all this grant money that, just
To
a
the
couple of
penny.
things. I think the leadership program at the elementary schools, I think, is an excellent idea.
Thank you.
Just wondering, is this going to be, because it's a stipend position, there will have to be a process for application and?
Yes.
Or is this something you just?
So, with the support of the board, if it stays in the budget and we're able to move forward with it, we'll go through the process of writing the job description, posting that position, interviewing for that position, and then each month, the leaders who we select will meet with myself and Ms. Mbon from the curriculum department. We will train them, we will talk with them, we will let them know what the message is, and then they will meet with their grade level teams on a monthly basis.
And that will be done, well, is their position, their instructional position going to be modified, or are they still going to be, they're still, whatever they're teaching, they're still?
No, whatever, their instructional
have to do
day
that
will remain
after
the
school time,
same. This
or?
is all after school hours.
All right. And just one other point regarding the tremendous amount of money that we receive from these grants. I assume there's a challenge to choose which programs we can continue and which we have to see sunset because of the,
Correct.
and how are we going about that?
Yes. So it has been a process in trying to ensure that we provide as much support to all of our students as possible. With some of the programs that are sunsetting, some of them being some of the programs at the secondary level for this current summer, academic-wise. we felt as though it was, from an academic standpoint, to grab the students at the elementary level and provide them with the adequate support for the summer in a 4-week program. Whereas the secondary will continue to have their support programs through Title I money come September. You're welcome.
Go ahead,
Madam
Mr.
President.
Sure.
Excellent presentation, thank you. But not even necessarily for you, maybe for the whole board to consider, maybe this is an appropriate time for us to, and we've talked about it in the past, but maybe a grant writer, because there's a lot of grants floating around, maybe somebody that just can focus on that and scoop up money so we can continue programs and expand. I mean, since we're working on the budget now, maybe Mr. Smythe could find a hole someplace, which I know is asking a lot, but
That 1.7
well, for a
hole.
grant writer, I mean, you know, if you get the right grant writer, they pay for themselves and then some. So I just think, you know, we've done a lot of great things over the last several years with all this grant money, and especially using it down to the last cent where other districts have wasted it. I just think it'd be a shame for some of the things that we've done to go away because it has made an impact. So I just think that's something for us to consider.
Ms. McCann, awesome presentation, thank you so much. As far as the grade level department leaders, I think it's an outstanding initiative. I know we discussed it a little bit in personnel, and I think what I really like is each of our elementary schools obviously has its own personality, and they're, you know, unique to themselves, and I love that. But what I love about this department leader idea is that by getting everyone together, there's discussion, and we're making sure that the way information is kind of delivered then kind of goes across all 4 schools, as opposed to it being super unique, you know. So a second grader's experience should be similar, whether they're at West Belmar, Old Mill, Central, Allenwood. And I think that this kind of endeavor is going to help encourage that. I'm sure that's everybody's goal all the time. And I also like seeing that our elementary folks have an opportunity to kind of also continue growing, you know, professionally. My one question that I did have is, so when folks go for professional development, and we love that they go out and they do that, how do we make sure that that information comes back into the district and then is able to be shared with colleagues?
So when a staff member requests any type of professional development outside of the district, they are required to fill out a professional development request form that comes through my office. I read them all. I approve, and then Dr. Handerhan second approves. And then once they return, they're required to fill out a reflection form where they discuss how they are going to share that information back at their, back to their building level or to their grade level. We then encourage the principals to provide opportunities at faculty meetings and/or when they do have their grade level common planning time to have those conversations. It's a little easier at the intermediate level with the team leaders because they have an opportunity on a regular basis to sit and talk and share that information, whereas at elementary it's a little trickier. So having this opportunity of these grade level leaders is prime time for them to be able to bring stuff back and not just share it with their building, but across all of them.
Just real quick, thank you, everybody, for presenting. It was informative. So for me, I want to piggyback off of Mr. Adonesio's comments because I agree with him that a grant writer might be in our future, particularly because of how we looked at the grants and the COVID funds that came in. And Dr. Handerhan, I'm sure, will back me up when, you know, I say that we were adamant on not reducing the amount of recurring costs that ended up coming out of those funds. They were for programs, they were for supplemental items that when the faucet of money got shut off wouldn't drastically impact the rest of the district from a staffing standpoint and a program standpoint. Now that we're at the end of the process, I think we need to take a look back and see, and we're doing that right now. But the things that are working and worked, that there's value to adding to the educational process and the way we do things here. If you feel we do need to figure out a more permanent basis to do this, now's the time to really talk about how we can start to implement and phase that in instead of seeing it sunset out. And if part of that is a grant writer, I think that should be an option that we consider as we move forward.
Yes, I 1,000% concur with respect to our discussions with making sure that we use that federal money not for recurring costs. And I have to tell you, one of the things that I did not look forward, I'm not looking forward to September 30th, 2024, because I know that every penny has to be spent. And it was really difficult knowing that the $85,000 for this summer that Ms. McCann outlined that we have left, that was not it was not enough to fund the entire suite that we have been able to provide for our community for the last couple summers. And we had to make some tough decisions. And we used educational sense to say, okay, where can we really get the most amount of participation for the monies that we had left. And certainly our attendance at the elementary schools, it was off the chart. It was off the chart. But it pains me, Mr. Nasser, that we're not able to provide free of cost to the families the amazing programs. One of the best things, there's not too many great things that came out of COVID, but one of the great things was to see the amount of wonderful programs that came to this district from our staff members that developed it. And one of my favorite things that we were able to include is providing the summer program for rising kindergartners. That is students that haven't started kindergarten yet. And I have to tell you, from the parents, from kindergarten teachers, I've talked to many, many people, and they are just blown away by the amount of the jump start that our students that attended these programs were able to come in September. So in many ways, the kindergarten teachers felt that they were starting in October. They weren't starting in September. And I would like to stress that we have many of our families are able to send their students to their children to nursery school. They're in a daycare scenario. That is not the scenario for every child. So we have kids that enter kindergarten without having been in a formal educational setting, where it can be scary. You're walking into a room with 24 desks. That in and of itself can be a little intimidating. But we were able to really chip away at that with that summer program. So that is just one of many of the amazing programs. So I certainly, it's painful to not be able to provide all of these, but I'm certainly, I know certainly Mr. Smythe and I and others that are certainly at the dais can look to see if that's something that we can look into. And as we look to refine our staff, because Mr. Adonisio, you're right, a good grant writer does pay their own salary, and there's just been so many wonderful, wonderful things that have taken place. Even just the shows at the end of the theater programs, just the showcase at the end where their parents come in for the K-5 programs, and they demonstrate all the things that they learned, their art projects. I just wish everybody had the same lens that I did for these programs, and it stings to not be able to provide them. We can provide it somewhat this summer with the remaining funds, but we can absolutely have that conversation and, it comes down to priorities. As I mentioned earlier, we're at 1.7 right now, $1.7 million. That is our gap. We're working, as Mr. Smythe said, the gap was a lot bigger on Friday, so we keep refining, we keep whittling away, and I think that's something we should look into as we look to prioritize, because a good grant writer is priceless. So that said, I hope that I didn't go on and on and on, but I'm incredibly proud of the work that our teachers, our administrators have, just incredibly proud of the work, because this money, all of this federal money came out to buoy students to make up for learning loss, and I am so proud of the work that has happened. And I can say, because we truly did not spend the bulk on recurring costs in any way. So we were able to focus on instruction, and that's where it belonged, and that's where the spirit of the funding came from. So I want to thank Mr. Adonisio and Mr. Nazar for pointing that out. And it's certainly we're really busy between now and the March 26th staffing conversation. So thank you for your input.
Okay, are there any final questions or comments from the board? I would just like to mention quickly how proud I am of the crisis response team and plan that we have in place that has been developed. As a parent, I get to see things as a parent and as a board member. I'm very proud of how fleshed out and developed our ability is now in the district to respond in times of crisis. And I think it's also interesting to note 3 outstanding presentations from 3 outstanding members of our district. And I think what's really interesting to note is that we have an assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction, a position that did not exist several years ago. We sit tonight with a director of intervention programs and student wellness, and we're sitting with our very soon-to-be assistant superintendent for our special services. And I know there's always discussions about how the district can improve, the district can become stronger. I hope that people have an opportunity to really hear what each of these positions is doing with their departments. I think it's a testament to how far the district is still moving. We've all taken hits with the pandemic, things like that, but here we are on the other side, still moving forward, and I hope it makes people recognize how much the district has committed to our students and to our staff, and then our community. And I think that it's really interesting that we have the 3 of you here tonight, and that these are newer positions. And I think you're really serving the district with pride and a lot of hard work. And I think it's excellent because our staff deserves committed leaders who are willing to support them. And I think our whole administrative team is doing a great job. I thank you all. So you got a lot of work coming up. Good luck. Good luck. We all do. We all do. So I believe that's going to conclude our workshop for this evening. Thank you to the board for coming out. I want to remind people on the board that if you have individual questions, Mr. Smythe has always been very happy to make appointments, I know with me, and walk me through some questions and help me as I learn to tackle this beast of a budget. I know Mr. Nasser is always also, as chair of F&F, always very willing to discuss. So you're not alone in digesting this. Please make sure that you reach out if and when you have any questions. So seeing that, I think, may I please have a motion to adjourn?
I will second that motion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Adonisio, Ms. DiGiovanni. All in favor? All right. Okay, thank you. Hope everybody has a great evening. Take care.